Welcome to Girls on Fire.
We are back with another episode of Girls on Fire, and it's not just the girls today. We are with our friend Ryan Gonzalez, who is Director of HTM Cybersecurity at Sodexo, also President of HTMA Ohio. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. It's great to meet you guys in person for the first time recently. Maybe that wasn't the first time.
Who knows? It all kind of jumbles together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many shows, I can't keep track. I introduce myself to the same people every time, and they're like, "We've met." I'm like, "Of course, I didn't forget."
Well, Ryan, we just saw each other at HTMA Ohio, which that was such a great show. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I really wanted to have you on today because not only, like I had said, you are an HTM director, and we can talk a little bit about the leadership role that you do there, but you also have the leadership role at the HTMA Ohio Association, which I want to talk about that and why that's important for people to attend, not only your association's symposium, but others too. So that's what we're going to get into details with today, guys. But I wanted to start off, of course, with our moment of joy. So we gave Ryan a little bit of what this is. I told him I talk about Starbucks a lot as my moment of joy. You know, sad life sometimes.
The little things.
So we're gonna get started with Ryan since he's our guest. So Ryan, what is your moment of joy?
Well, so I did think about this a lot, and I know you mentioned Starbucks, and I already clued you into this, but my wife bought this weird coffee that was brown sugar flavored, and that was very not joyous. So I had to think of something else, and I love my coffee. So my moment of joy, I actually have two. I have one for my personal life and one for my professional life. So my personal life, my sister Angela moved away many years ago, all the way to the other side of the country to Portland, Oregon. But last weekend she came and visited. So for about 5 hours, me, her, and my brother sat at the kitchen table, and I think we were up till almost 3 a.m. and we just talked, and it was like pretty cool because we hadn't really done that in a very long time since she moved away. So that was my moment of joy in my personal life, and then on my professional life. Obviously, we just had the HTMA Ohio conference, and it's kind of a whirlwind, but one thing that put it into perspective for me was I was talking to one of our vendors, and she told me afterwards, she thanked me for putting on the show and said it's her favorite show of the year because it's the one show where she feels like she can be herself. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like, that's pretty cool. That's what we're going for. It's, there's all these other things we do, but it's really kind of, you'll probably hear me talk a lot about this today, but it's supposed to feel more like a reunion and bringing friends together and doing cool stuff. So that was my moment of joy.
No, that's awesome. We love when people come with a personal and a career, focused one. And with us doing shows too, hearing that, someone just say something so personal that they just really feel like they belong there. I think that's awesome and such a true testament to what you guys put on last week.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm a little curious of why you don't like brown sugar coffee. I love brown sugar. That's where my mind went.
My coffee black. So it just caught me off guard.
No, but
Black? Are you a serial killer, Ryan?
All right, so I have to tell you this story. So I didn't drink coffee till I was like in my late 20s. I didn't like the smell, I didn't like the taste. And then I hit this point in my life where actually it was early 30s, where we had a third kid. So now I got these three little kids. They're like ages like 4, 2, and a newborn. And I literally was falling asleep everywhere I went. So the moment that I knew I needed to do something was I was sitting in the dentist's chair. I fell asleep with my mouth open and them cleaning my teeth. And I woke up, I'm like, I'm so sorry. This has never happened to me before. I said, it's just the first moment of quiet I've had in a long time.
and they're drilling in your mouth, and that's more quiet. That's
so
how
that's
you
what I
do.
do. So
Yeah.
since then, at the time, my wife was on this kick where she was doing like intermittent fasting and different things, and had switched to black coffee. So I just learned to drink what she drank, and it stuck. So now I'm no fun with my coffee.
Yeah, that is okay.
I feel like you could really relate next time you're at one of our shows, or if John Wallace, our editor, he has 3 young little girls, and he probably could tell you, you guys could probably mix and match stories.
It was rough.
Yeah, he's still in the thick of it too. So you definitely should chat with him.
All right, Kristen, hit us with yours.
Oh gosh, I was hoping you would go first. I've had a heck of a week. So it's been kind of hard to find a moment of joy, but I'm going to use all the horrible things as my moment of joy. So I've been having some car troubles. My transmission decided to give out a week and a half ago. So, but my moment of joy is actually going to be I got a text from my mom earlier this week, and it was just like a good morning. I just want to say how proud I am of you for how you've been handling all of this car stuff. She was like, you're a boss. If you need anything, let me know. Love you. And so that was my moment of joy. It was kind of like a, you know what? Even though all these things are happening to me, I feel like I have been on and off the phone with, people that are way more experienced, and I'm not letting them give me a run for my money. I'm like, I'm in sales too. Nice try. But my moment of joy has just been trying to stay calm and get through this and handle things that aren't necessarily what you anticipate or expect, but just realizing that far worse things could be happening, and I have really nothing to be upset about at this moment.
No, I mean, you did. I mean, your car's transmission blew up, so you had a moment of terror, and then your mom came in with this moment of joy. So that's the upside.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
That's what moms are for, right?
I know that, and I texted her. I said, I needed that. Thank you for that. And that was my joy, is having a great support system. So
That's awesome. Mine is kind of similar, not about my mom, but one of my best friends. So on Sunday this past weekend, we haven't got to hang out in probably a month because she moved a little bit, about an hour-ish away. But it's really hard when everybody has their own lives and work and all of the things. So we got to go and have lunch, or brunch lunch, and it just was it was a long lunch, I'm not gonna lie, but it was just so nice to go and see one of your friends. And once you haven't seen each other in a while, it's almost that you haven't lost any of it, and you just talk forever. And it's just good for the soul to have those types of times where you can step away from your significant others, even though you love them, or whatever the case is, your job, all the things, and then just have that one friend that you can just lose all track of time. And it's just the best soul happy time. So that was great that I got to do that.
Hey, I need a day like that.
Yeah,
I know, I love that. I have this one friend, it's the same thing. We could go months without talking, and then when we catch up, we always say our cup feels so full after speaking to each other. And I was like, and so I use that all the time. I'm like, whenever I leave any sort of conversation, I want my cup to feel full, whether it's personal, professional, whatever. And I'm like, oh, that made me think of that. Your cup overfloweth.
I know. And today, Ryan, you are going to be our hot topic.
Hot topic.
Of course, because we want to learn all about you and everything that's had to happen with your career. But as you can see, we like to talk about personal things too. So before we get into all the career stuff, I know we got to talk a little bit, but I wanted to know, about your wife and how many daughters. You have 3 daughters, or is it 2 daughters? Tell us a little bit about your personal life, if you don't mind.
Okay. So yeah, so my wife and I, this is actually coming up on our 15-year wedding anniversary. So that's in October. So I got to make sure I plan something nice for that. We have 3 kids. My oldest is my son Lucas, who's 13, and then I have an 11-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter. And it's so fun, the different dynamics between the 3. And it's also fun because they're old enough where they don't have to take care of them as much. It's more like we just get to have fun.
Right.
So it's been pretty cool. And we also have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and my 8-year-old has been absolutely begging for a gecko. And I'm trying to decide, do we invest and get a gecko? And I don't know if we should do that or not.
The full house.
Yeah. So
Really
we already have enough pets. but none of them live in her room. Is what she wants, something that lives in her room. So we'll see.
Why did she decide on a gecko?
So originally she asked for a bearded dragon, and I have no idea where that came from. And so I started looking into it. I'm like, well, bearded dragons actually get pretty big, and they need like a really big tank and a really big space. So I put the kibosh on that. I'm like, no, we don't have the space for something like that. So she found something smaller. For whatever reason, she wants a lizard of some sort, and I really don't know why, but.
Youngest are always the hustlers. She is smart. She said, okay, if you can't have this, I'm going to pivot. Let me find something smaller.
So she went and she made like a whole list of all the things geckos need. So she's like trying to give me all the excuses, or give me no excuses to not get her one for her birthday. So she doesn't
I'm
know
Team
this, but
Gecko.
it'll probably happen.
Yeah, I'm Team Gecko. I remember growing up, whenever I wanted something, I would make a full PowerPoint presentation and sit my parents down and go through it so as to why I could. So maybe you can tell her, bring together a PowerPoint presentation on why, and we'll go from there.
All right, I'm gonna ask her. She's been doing these PowerPoints for school. I mean, I didn't know that like 8-year-olds did that, but apparently that's a thing now. So.
That's awesome. Okay, so now that we got some of your personal, we want to talk about your background and your career. So how did you even get started in HTM? How long have you been in the industry? Tell us as much as you can.
Sure. So I like to tell people that right out of high school, I had zero idea what I wanted to be. So I just picked a random degree. I went to Bowling Green State University, and they had this degree called Electronics and Computer Technology. And I'm like, I don't know, that sounds cool. I like computers, and that sounds like it'd probably get me a good job. So I enrolled in that, and I was about halfway through the program, and I'm still asking myself, like, I have no idea what this job actually qualifies me to do. But just like they say, it's all about who you know. My mom works in the microbiology lab in the biggest hospital here in Columbus, and it just so happened the microbiology lab is right across the hall from the biomed shop. So she walked over and just asked, like, do you guys ever do internships? My son's doing this weird electronics degree, and next thing I know, a week later, I've got a job as an intern in a biomed shop, and I must have done something right because they kept me on after I graduated, and next thing you know, I'm starting as a biomed, and they handed me a stack of PMs and a stack of manuals and said, let me know if you have any questions. And that was how it all started. Me just really not knowing what I was doing or where I was going, and next thing you know, I'm a biomed.
What did
That's
you
so
think?
awesome.
What did you think you wanted to do, like when you were in college?
Okay, so actually when I was in college, or when I went to college, I thought that I wanted to be a college professor.
Okay.
But I started obviously it takes a lot of education for that. So even as I graduated, I took, I don't even remember what it's called now, the test you do to get into your master's program. And I applied for a couple programs at Ohio State here, and I got accepted to one for electrical engineering masters, but I didn't qualify for any financial aid. So like, well, let me take this job. They had offered for me to stay on as a biomed. Let me just take this job, and once I'm there long enough where I can get the reimbursements, because you had to be there for a full year, then I'll start doing the master stuff. And honestly, I just liked it so much, I just stayed. Like the culture and like the work-life balance. And then you know how it goes when you get too far away from something, it's hard to get back at it. So I just stayed. And I'm still doing it now.
Must have liked it
I
then.
did eventually get my master's, but it took like 12 years later.
Well, that's good. So I know now you are director of HTM for cybersecurity at Sodexo. So how did you get there? I know you said you started as a biomed, and then how long did it take you to move up, you would say?
Okay, so well, the interesting thing is the hospital system I was at was an in-house program, and they did not have BMET 1, 2, or 3 or anything. It was just everyone, whether you've been there 1 year or 40 years, was a biomedical technician. So for the first 9 years of my career, I was just a biomedical technician. And at the time, they also didn't have supervisors. So we had like, I don't know, 20 something biomedical technicians who all reported up through a director. All right. So after about 9 years, I'm like, my wife started, actually that was about when we got pregnant with our third kid. I'm like, hey, I got this little house and we don't have space for a third kid, and we don't have a car that'll fit a third kid. So my wife's like, we probably need to do something. So me and a group of other people, other technicians at the hospital, we went up to our VP, like we went to HR and we said, hey, there's no career path here at the hospital. Like, we are technicians who report to a director position, and there's no manager and there's no supervisor. Like, we don't have a career progression. And it took us over a year of going to a bunch of different people within the hospital system and making our case and doing PowerPoint presentations. And finally, they made a change. They instituted a full structure of biomed 1, 2, and 3, a supervisor, manager, director. So like a legitimate department. And when they did that is when I got promoted to a supervisor. I was lucky enough to get one of the supervisor positions, and it was like my first taste of, well, if you really put your effort into something and you go for what you believe is right, it can happen, and
Right.
and you'll be rewarded for it. So it was kind of cool. So then fast forward, at that point in time, they moved us from underneath supply chain to underneath IT. So this was where I started to think, well, if I'm going to keep moving up the ladder, because I got a little taste of success and wanted a little bit more, I need to do something about it. So I enrolled and I got my master's degree. And I thought, well, since we report up to IT, let me get a master's in something IT related. So I got a master's in information systems management and used that to get a position as a manager. It was with a different hospital system, but still. So I did 5 years as a supervisor and then got a position as a manager with a different hospital system. And around that time is when I met Ryan Gonzalez, who's with the College of Biomedical Equipment Technology. And they were trying to create this class to teach IT to biomeds. And I had done a lot of that stuff within my career. As a supervisor, I did a lot of projects and stuff, integrations, and then I had this degree. So I was helping the college teach this class, and it just so happened a lot of the people I was teaching the class to was Sodexo employees. So my current boss kind of saw something in me and brought me on to help Sodexo with cybersecurity. It was kind of things went really really slow at the beginning of my career, and then all of a sudden it went really fast.
Shot up.
Yeah, you blinked and you're like all the way up.
Yeah, well, because I had set a goal, like I want to be a director one day, but I didn't think it would be so quick.
You didn't think it would be tomorrow.
Right, well, I spent 10 years. So actually, it's a funny story. My 10 years as a biomedical technician and then my 5 years as a supervisor were all in the same hospital and literally at the same exact desk. So I spent 15 years at the same desk, going to the same place. We moved the desk around a couple of times, but it's still like it was the same exact spot. So for me, it felt very slow. 15 years, you go to the same place every day, all day, you sit at the same desk. It's just, the hospital got bigger. Our shop actually got bigger too. But so I don't know, it felt like, I don't know the right way to put it, but I felt like I did my time. I earned my experience before I decided to make a jump.
Yeah, no, I want to point out something you had said early on that I think is really crucial because our audience is a lot of young professionals that listen to our podcast. But you went, and even though you were there, 15 years, you had went and made, not only room for you to be able to grow in different positions, but you made this whole structure happen with, your coworkers, where now like they'll have this infrastructure set up where people can keep growing, years from now. So I think that is huge because I think some of us as young professionals, we might feel a little stuck sometimes, we don't know what to do. But you said it took you, I think, a whole year to really like get this in place.
We met with 3 different VPs and HR, and it took a while, but like that's really kind of what started my passion, what grew into like what I try to do now is like, look, you don't have to wait for the world to be ready for you to move up in whatever capacity it is you're trying. Like if you're ready, you find a way. And whether that means creating it where you're at now or going somewhere where there's an opportunity or starting your own business or whatever that means, like you don't wait for the world, you make it happen.
That was
Kristen, I
amazing. I'm in like my jaw is on the floor. I'm like,
Uh,
I
and
need to.
I'm not always as good at actually doing that as I am saying that, but it's possible, right? You know?
Yeah, I saw something the other day and I've been like waiting to share it with people for the right time. I think this is perfect. I saw something that was like, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. And I was like, wow. Like if you're, like you said, in your hospital, if you aren't making the change, then you are choosing to stay exactly where you were.
Right.
So that really puts it in perspective of like, it really is a choice at the end of the day. You're not stuck. Like you're choosing it if you're not changing it. So it
Well,
sounds like you went in and changed it.
what I see a lot, and I think is one of the things that really helped me, is you've probably been in these meetings where you get into a meeting or with a group of people and you spend a whole lot of time talking around the problem and talking about the problem, and everybody goes their separate ways at the end of it. And that's the end of it. Well, I really tried to focus a lot more on like, hey, let's not really worry so much about what the problem is let's worry about set a goal as a solution and work towards that. And as long as like, even if what we first try doesn't work, which happens a lot, like that's fine. We all recognize, look, we tried to do something better. So that like when I was a technician and a leader, I'd always tell my people, we're going to try something, and if it doesn't work, no big deal, we'll try something else. But the goal is to get better. The goal is to keep improving, and as long as we're making that effort, we'll eventually get to the right place. And if not, at least we tried, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to move in to HTMA Ohio, Ryan. So you play a big role there as president. I know for quite some time now. Humble, show the logo. And that was my first time being there last week with Jamie McKelvey, and we just thoroughly enjoyed our time at that show. Like we came back and told our team how much that like we need to go back next year. It just was such a successful show. So I want to talk about how you even got started or wanted to be part of this association in a big role.
So it's kind of funny. So the Ohio Association has been through a number of periods where it just went dormant. You know, there was not enough interest to it. It went through multiple different name changes, and at one point in time, my manager at the time, Ken Burkholder, teamed up with Glenn Schneider, if you know him through the industry, and they brought it back in its current form as the HTMA Ohio. So even at that point, like we tried to have shows. We had shows where our events were 2 people showed up, 3 people showed up, and then we got to a point where I started to be more active as a board member, because when my boss retired, he asked me to be a board member. And it really, in its current iteration, I think what made it very successful, and I'm not going to take all the credit, so I'm going to name drop here a little bit with Teresa Workman and Ken Mylar and Jasmine Zirkle. Like the 4 of us have been consistently on the board for, I don't know, 5 years or so. And we really, between the 4 of us, have made this big shift of, okay, let's get it out of the hospital. Let's change how we focus, how we improve things. We talk to everybody, as you probably noticed as our show. It's a lot of like going and talking to people, see what do they want, how do we grow this organically and make improvements every single time. And that's been super impactful. And then also just like me talking about it to everybody I ever meet, and making sure when they show up, we have fun. So that's
Yeah.
like always been our goal, is let's get people out and let's show them some fun, whether it's
Right.
fun in education, fun in Top Golf, whatever it may be. So it took a while. I actually, trying to think here. I've only been the president for the last year, but even before that, I've been a very like visible role of it and trying to like push it to what we can do better, what we can do more. And it has gone from, like I said, our original, like our show maybe 4 years ago, we had like 50 people there. And now I think this one we had 300 people there.
That's
So
insane. I was gonna say we consistently had people coming by our booth, the whole time during exhibit hall hours. That Top Golf event was crowded the entire time. TechNation was sponsoring one of the bays. Like we always had people coming in there. That is crazy that you went from 2 or 5 people to where you're at now. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, I want to really quickly just ask, because again, a lot of our audience is young professionals, and I'm with the HTM job branch, so we work really closely with people getting into this career. How important would you say it is for an entry-level technician to join a state association and really plant their roots into the community?
So that's another thing we've tried to make is a big shift for our community, is like really empowering them. Like this is more for them than for anybody else. You go to a lot of shows and you get a lot of the veterans who are off sharing stories of all the things that they've done in their career, but like the show's significantly more important for the younger group. And at least for us, like I don't know if Megan, if you saw when you at the show, but we try to bring out a lot of students too. We
Yeah.
had students from multiple colleges. We always make sure they invite, because like that's our future. So um, for the younger kids, especially those just starting, it's a couple of different things. It's one, them kind of seeing like this is your community of people that you can learn from, creating that network of, now a lot of people at other hospital systems, and that helps for a number of things. One, that'll help you in the job you're in right now, because a lot of these folks are fixing the same exact things you are, and now you know somebody at a different hospital system up the road who can say, hey, I've done that repair before. Here's what I did to troubleshoot it. But you also have these connections for if the role you're in or the hospital you're at's not ready for your growth. Now you know some people at some other hospitals, and then the students. Like we get a lot of students who come through, and we can connect them right up with managers or directors in the areas they live, and say, hey, here, if you're looking for a job in the future, now you've got their business card. Or we'll walk around and try to position them like, hey, what internships are available? Like there was a group of 5 or 6 students there from Miami of Ohio, and the very first thing I asked them is who's looking for an internship, and coincidentally none of them were, but but in the past we've connected people with interns, because that's our goal, is like how do we make everybody like bring each other up, right?
Well, I will vouch for you. We did have quite a few veterans actually bring over some of their students or people that are interning with them, and they're like, this is TechNation. This is what they do. They offer this, this, and that. Megan runs the YP at MD group. They have this podcast. So it was like, it was really good to see, because I feel like I think that's what we're all trying to do in the whole industry, is try to find ways to get out and like tell people about HTM in the first place if they don't even know about it. So it was really cool seeing how many younger people there were.
Yeah, and I think it's important because like we all live in these little pockets of hospitals, where we kind of know our staff, and that's it. So like for my position, like it doesn't matter if you're an in-house biomed or you're with Sodexo or Trimedics or Croth or whoever. Like we all can, like, there's a lot of problems we can solve that are bigger than just our hospital. There's so many things, and like when we bring the community together and we kind of grow together and build each other up, I think we're going to all be better off because of it.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to also touch a little bit more on the show. Jamie and I were able to come and join you guys for a little bit during your leadership course that you put on. And I wanted to talk about, unfortunately, we missed the first half because we thought it was about finance and we're not good at numbers. So sorry about that.
Can't confuse you two girls too much.
Well, go ahead.
We wanted to talk a little bit about how you was this your first year doing that course, how you decided on that, and how you planned everything out, because if somebody is interested in maybe presenting in the future at your show or at a different show, what did you have to do to even get, like, what's the process?
So first off, I apologize about the mix-up. We had a time conflict where I was supposed to go at 2. There was a mix-up. I ended up starting at 1, and you missed a good portion of it, which is unfortunate because I've heard it was probably the best presentation at the entire show.
That was really good. The second half was
Word on
great.
the street is.
Um, I'll tell you. So every year we're looking at like what we can do differently with our conference, and this year, like I even before I had the leadership course planned, I decided I wanted to do something on Thursday because traditionally our show is a social event on Thursday and the full day conference on Friday. So March of last year, I booked that conference space for Thursday, like a 4-hour block of 2 big rooms. Like we're gonna find something to put in here. And as we started thinking about it, it was kind of the brainchild was, well, let's do a leadership development course, and we'll 3 hours seemed like a good enough time. And then let's figure out what content it should be. Well, before that, I had some conversations with different people, both professional and personal career, on like, okay, how much of yourself do you really put into being a leader? And it's just all over the map. So I decided, my goal as just a person is how do I help people like learn from my mistakes? I feel like when I started in the industry, like I wasn't kidding when I said I started and it was a stack of PMs and a stack of manuals and good luck. So I feel like I struggled a lot through the early part of my career. The first handful of years, I had no aspirations. Like I said, my department didn't even have a supervisor or manager, so I didn't even know what I was capable of. So my goal was like, now that I've maybe done a couple things, how do I give some of that guidance back to people who are coming behind me so maybe they don't have to have the same struggles? So I was kind of looking through what really defined and kind of helped me. A lot of it was I put into the leadership class. So there was 2 different presentations that I did, and one was the vulnerability as another tool in your leadership toolkit, and that was kind of more on the soft skills side that was where I really lacked. So I spent a lot of times reading books, listening to podcasts. I spend a ton of time listening to podcasts, honestly, on all sorts of topics and what can you pull from that from different industries, and then putting it into a way that made sense. And for that presentation in particular, like if I figured if I was going to do a presentation on vulnerability, I better put some personal anecdotes in there and be vulnerable to kind of open that door for other people to, one, see is it effective, and open the door for them to be a little bit vulnerable themselves.
Yeah. Well, we hear a lot of people like because they come to our shows and be like, "Oh, I want to present. I just don't know where to start." What would be some of your best advice for someone that is like looking to wanting to present in the future? What is something that you did, starting out with all of this that you think would be helpful?
All right, so this is a really good question because I was in the same place a few years ago where I wanted to do something, but I'm like, well, what expertise do I have? So what I've actually tried to do is figure out, okay, what is it like when you're in your current job, what is it you tend to be teaching all of the people around you, whether it's your peers or your people who report up to you or even up to your boss. We all have our own little pockets of expertise that we're good at, and I promise if it's useful in your own shop, it's going to be useful for other people. Like you can take almost anything and slice a little pie off a piece of the pie off of it, the big industry, and teach that. Whether it's a specific technical skill or whatever it may be, even if it's Excel or PowerPoint. Like there's a lot of people in this industry it's going to be beneficial to. So just kind of just get started. I always start with like an outline and an end goal and build towards there. And don't be afraid to ask others for help. There's a lot of people in this industry who would either be willing to co-present with you or give you advice on your presentation. You would be surprised how much expertise you actually have when you start to dig into it, is what I would tell people. So the other thing, here's the other good advice I have. If you've ever been to any of these conferences and you've been and sat through presentations and you're like, I don't know, that one kind of missed the mark, do it better. Be my advice.
No,
If
that's
you
great.
know why it missed the mark, then build a better one.
That's great. Kristen, any other questions you think for Ryan before we move on to our next segment?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all. I've learned so much too. Like, I love having guests on because I learned so much about this industry. Because again, Megan and I say all the time that we are not biomeds. We've never picked up a wrench. I've only picked up hammers to literally put holes in my walls. So it's really fun just to learn more about this industry from your lens and your perspective because it really does help us do our job better. But no, I think you covered it all.
Ryan, no, that was all great information. Like I said, people are always asking us to present. They're always wanting to know, like, how do I move up the ladder? Well, you kind of just told them what you did. You have to go out there and do it. So I think our audience will really, really get something from that. But we're not done with you yet.
There's more. Line up.
We have our this or that segment. Rapid fire for Ryan. It's a really fun thing that we do with a lot of our guests just to get to know you guys a little bit better. And this one is really special because we have Valentine's Day coming up at the end of this week. So this one is going to be Valentine's Day focused.
Boy, I'm nervous.
Gobi, I promise. They're layups. We won't be too harsh.
No, we won't. And you know what? You could tell your wife to listen to this one, on the way.
Well, I'm gonna send it to her. She's my biggest supporter.
I would say, warning, she might expect a lot from you after some of these questions. So think about that. All right,
All
Megan,
right.
you off.
You want me to go first? Okay. All right, Ryan, you ready?
I'm ready.
Do you typically give your wife candy or flowers for Valentine's Day?
So more often candy. Actually, so chocolate covered strawberries are the normal way to go. She doesn't know this, but they're already on order. So,
Great job.
FYI.
For almost 15 years.
How about a lot? Take notes in every way. Okay, next one is for Valentine's dinner. Do you guys cook in or do you go out to eat?
More often than not, we order in. So used to be by need because the kids were little and getting a sitter for 3 kids that are a little bit wild is hard. But now we kind of like it. So our favorite thing to do is we order in. There's a sushi place right up the road, like 5 minutes. I'll go pick up sushi. We bring it back and we watch a horror movie. So sushi and a horror movie with some wine is the way to go.
That sounds amazing.
That's good. All right. Would you rather go on a day date or a night date?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe a night date.
Yeah.
But I'm open to either. My wife and I don't have like a go-to for like dates. It's like, well, okay, what's going on? Does anybody want to hang out with us?
It's whatever fits in the crazy schedule.
Yeah.
My next one is, do you do big gifts or love letters?
Oh, I used to be really good at love letters. So we have this book my wife bought me, and she said instead of buying me a card, just write me something in this book. I used to be really good at it, where I would write things in there. I guess I need to get back to this. Maybe this is the reminder. But gifts I'm pretty good at because I have a Google Keep notebook in here that I just, if I hear her say she wants something, I just write it down and buy it later. That's like the easy go-to. That's my best advice for especially newly married men is when you hear them say they want something, write it down, and then you can buy them exactly what you want they want later. So.
And they're saying it for a reason. They want you to hear it and write it down. We want you to read it.
It doesn't have to be hard.
Ryan, I think you're a very smart man.
Yeah. Me too.
All right. On Valentine's Day, would you rather be late to your dinner reservation with your wife or forget the Valentine's Day card? Which one would she be more mad about?
So I'm not a big proponent of cards, so she wouldn't even notice if I forgot the card, but she would notice if I was late.
Makes sense.
That's good. Good answer. My next one is for Valentine's Day, if you were going to plan a big kind of adventure, would you want to do an activity for Valentine's Day or a really nice dinner somewhere?
Oh, I prefer activities. I love doing something. Doesn't matter what, like any sort of like live performance, music, theater. We'll go to the high school play. I'd love going to like anything live that's just kind of something interesting. So that's my preference. Let's do an activity. Go somewhere.
Good. Okay. And would your wife prefer to have a nice bottle of wine or a nice bottle of champagne for Valentine's Day?
Definitely more on the wine side.
Okay. What kind? Is she a white or a red girl?
Oh, I should know the answer to this one, but so I know she likes Cabernets
Okay.
and Malbecs and probably some other stuff.
Whatever pairs nicely with the sushi. That is
All
what.
right. Yes. Honestly, I let her pick the wine out because I have a horrible sense of taste, so I don't really know.
It all tastes the
I'll
same to
let
me.
her do it.
That's good. Kristen, do you have any others or are we done?
Nope, that was it.
You handled that like a champ.
Well, thank you. You're right.
Yeah,
It
I think
wasn't.
we need to cut just that segment and post it and say, everyone, listen up if you're newly married. This is how you stay married for 15 years.
It's one of the many things you got to do.
Oh, Ryan, this was great. Thank you so much for being on with us today. You can come back anytime, and I hope our audience got to learn so much about you today if they didn't know you already. But are you going to be coming to an MD Expo soon?
So I really want to come to the next MD Expo, but normally I try to submit presentations. I didn't submit for this one because right around that time, the end of April is my daughter's birthday, and then also my son is in a play, and I had to wait for the dates to be announced, and none of them overlap with the MD Expo. So now I got to try to find a way to get there.
Yeah, we would love to have you. That would be great. So hopefully we'll see you then in April. But I have just a few announcements before we leave really quick. Just want to let everybody know we have our imaging conference coming up. It is going to be February 22nd through 24. So our ice show will be in Orlando, Florida on those dates. So definitely, get those registrations in. If you are an imaging service engineer, we have an education track for you. If you are an imaging director, radiology manager, leadership, we have a track for you. So, and then we have fun networking events, of course. So come hang out with us there. And then one more thing, we have our 40 under 40 2025 class. We're on the hunt for those people. Ryan was one of our 40 under 40 before. So definitely get those applications in before April 25th because we need the people. All right, guys, I think we're all set. Kristen, is there anything else we need to talk about today?
Well, I think you covered it.
Perfect. All right, Ryan, again, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you all next month. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.